Archives of IT, archivesit.org.uk. Failing to succeed and getting it right second time around. The UK's inability to produce tech giants like Google, Apple and Microsoft is sometimes linked to our attitude to failure. 4 entrepreneurs who have built exceptional businesses explain how failure is an important ingredient for success. Tom Illabay is a serial entrepreneur.
Why don't we in this country, why are we not able to build the likes of Microsoft, Oracle, Amazon, Facebook? Apart from ARM, we never get there, do we?
Yeah. I mean, I think there are a number of reasons. One of them, well, 2 that I would probably point to, maybe, possibly 3. One is our relationship with failure. We don't really like and embrace failure in the way that the folk in the States do. You know, you talk to an entrepreneur in the States and you say, tell me about your businesses, and they'll say, oh yeah, no, I launched one and then it crashed and burnt, and then I launched another and then it crashed and burnt, but this third one is going really well. You talk to an entrepreneur in the UK, getting them to say, you know, I tried this and it didn't work or whatever, or even in people's careers, getting people to say, you know, I joined a company and it didn't work out, or, you know, we just don't like to talk about it. But you've got, as entrepreneurs, we know that the route to success is through a series of failures. The reason why I got my first job at British Airways was because I applied to 500 other companies and they all said, get lost, we don't want you.
Richard Little is a serial entrepreneur and business angel.
So we chose Telex having failed with our first idea. And in fact, this conversation is reminding me of a lecture I gave just after I sold Braid, when someone asked me to explain, you know, my route to success. And it was having got everything wrong first time, and how my philosophy was to get it right second time, not even worry about getting it right first time. So I joined Burroughs, and if I'd stayed as a salaryman, I would have moved to IBM later. I chose the wrong company when I was given IBM or Burroughs to choose between. We launched Braid with the wrong product, but we got it right when we discovered what was wrong with it. And that's become, you know, almost the background to agile programming. You iterate. Nowadays, you know, it's become much more systematized. But in those days, it seemed like I was inventing this. Don't over-research things. Get out, do it, get it wrong, correct it.
Andy Phillips is an entrepreneur and business angel.
The business model hasn't evolved as with all these things, and I'm very anxious not to present it as a. I listen to lots of people who set their own businesses up, and they you occasionally rewrite the narrative. It was chaotic for quite a long period of time, and our original business idea was utter nonsense. So we were providing, in the first iteration of the business plan, we were providing thin clients out to hotels, because most hotels couldn't access the internet. So we provided a thin client provided by Alcatel, which enabled them to, it switched it on, and they switched it on. It came up with our webpage, and you could type in the room availability and prices. And then we were going to distribute it through a US distributor called WorldRes. Yeah, and the thin client, in retrospect, it's obvious. It had a 28K modem. And so it took about 10 minutes to check your availability and prices here. And it was so unbearably slow that, you know, these things started turning up in raffles, and as hotels dumped them here. And then similarly, we were signing up hotels around the UK and selling to an American audience. And again, it's obvious in retrospect, but American audiences only really go to Oxford, Cambridge, and London. And we were signing up hotels in Scunthorpe and Blackpool. And so again, there was a complete misfit between the, you know, what we were doing and actually what we should have been doing. So we completely, as we nearly went bankrupt, and then we completely pivoted.
Sir Robin Saxby was the first chief executive of Arm.
One of your first customers was indeed Apple.
It was.
For the Newton,
yes,
which was a complete failure.
Exactly.
You must have thought, what am I doing here?
No, I didn't think that at all.
Oh.
So how I looked at it was Newton's, so it comes by, if you're making mistakes, you're learning. So what was great about Apple. The guy who was behind the Newton project is a guy called Larry Tesler. He had been Apple's chief scientist. He'd also been involved in the design of Lisa, and he's still a very good friend of mine. So Larry was fantastic. The Newton project was broken, okay, but the Newton really turned into the iPhone. So some of the engineers who had worked on the Newton, and this is what I'd say to all the startups, don't expect the first product to work. Expect it to be a failure. Plan for the next one. And so all the first, I mean, it was tough because the problem was we might have gone bankrupt. We had no royalties. We were struggling to stay alive. We were running a very lean ship. But we survived, and that was a journey, that was a step. So the Newton was a failure. The other first product that was a failure was the 3DO multiplayer, which was a games player. That was another failure. And the first successful products actually were those dial-up modems that go, you know, that actually was the first product with an ARM in it to take off in volume. And then the really successful product that made the headlines was the Nokia 6110.
If you enjoyed this, find out more. Read and hear more stories from people of the industry at
Archives of IT, archivesit.org.uk.